Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Telescope Podcast. Thank you for listening.
What's up, everybody? Everyone in this place, if you can do a handstand, I want to see your feet up in the air right now. Wave them around, that's right. Woo!
Hello there, my name is Matthew Seipel Anderson. Welcome to the Telescope Podcast, the podcast where we look at culture through the spyglass of faith. I'm very, very excited for this episode. I've kind of been on hiatus for the last month, reevaluating the podcast. And you have to excuse me, I'm fighting a cold, but I'm just too excited to wait for my cold to blow over to get this episode finished. So I'm just pressing on. I'm very excited, like I said. This marks a new season in the life of the Telescope Podcast. This is episode number 12, and the first 11 episodes were solo, just me giving my thoughts. I'd pick a cultural topic, something that was going on in the news or some kind of cultural phenomenon. I just talk about it and tie it into faith. And anyway, I realized that it's no fun being all by your lonesome. And so I've been seeking out some guests, and I'm really excited about some interviews I've got lined up. And the first one you're going to hear right now is with my friend Erick Hermanson. Erick is the head honcho at the Encounter in Duluth, and he's also the executive director. I don't know his exact title, I guess. He's the director, the main man, the head cheese of the Youth for Christ in the Duluth Superior Twin Ports area. So he does Youth for Christ, and then he oversees the Encounter building. They have the largest indoor skateboard park north of the Twin Cities. They do have a concert venue there. He has lots of outreach to downtown, inner city type high school age kids. So he's really entrenched in youth culture, and he's also tied into church culture because he spends a lot of his time speaking at churches to raise awareness and raise support for his ministry. So he's a really interesting guy. He and I go way back. We played in a heavy metal band called Godhead and Manhood way back in the day. And Erick still dabbles in the metal. He's got a band called Lessons that he's a part of, and they just released a new album. So in our conversation, we talk about youth culture and the state of things and the ministry of the Encounter and Youth for Christ. We also get into Christian music, and I would love to hear your opinions on our conversation. If you have anything, go to our Facebook page. It's the Telescope Podcast on Facebook, and weigh in. In particular, we get a little critical of the current state of Christian music, and I'm sure some people are going to have some differing opinions, and I'd love to hear those and get that conversation going. And anyway, before I ramble on too much, here is my interview with Erick Hermanson. Erick, thanks for being on my amazing podcast.
It is good to be here and good to be with the viewers. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that at least 10 people are going to hear this.
Good. Well, I'd like to give a shout out to all 10 of you.
Hi, Grandma.
Grandma, I love you.
I think my grandma's on Facebook, so
Really?
she could listen if she wants. I post on
The
there.
book. That's what the kids are calling it, the book.
Really?
Actually, I don't think kids are on Facebook anymore.
No, probably
it's just
not.
It's just our parents.
Snapchat.
That's the thing. And I had a Snapchat for like a week and realized this is stupid and I don't want to be friends with teens and that's creepy. And so I deleted my Snapchat. But
Yeah, I got a Snapchat as well, trying to stay hip, trying to stay current.
Yeah.
And I think I have actually 3 notifications right now. And I hate Snapchat, so I just don't use it.
I know. Yeah. It's the worst.
Whatever. Embrace the oldness.
Yeah. MySpace. We're bringing back MySpace.
All
all those viewers out there, I want you to sign up, log in to your old MySpace, refresh it, renew it, get a new background on there. Let's do this. Bring it back.
Bring it back around, baby.
Yep.
Well, hey, I wanted to interview you because you spend a lot of time with students who are unchurched, and you spend a lot of time in the church world also speaking at churches. So I feel like you have a pretty unique perspective on youth culture and also church culture. So first off, tell us a little about Youth for Christ and about the Encounter building.
Yeah, well, Youth for Christ is an organization that's been around since 1944, and Billy Graham was our first full-time staff person. Old Billy. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that.
For real?
Yeah, for real.
That's cool.
First full-time paid staff person. And it kind of started with rallies nationwide and then went internationally. And it really became a movement simply based on reaching lost teens. And that's what we've been true to, and just really kind of thinking, how do we engage lost kids in meaningful relationships? Because when I think about me being younger and when I was a young man, I didn't know the Lord, but really felt lost. And I really felt like I wanted to know where to go, who I'm going to be, I did have a desire to want to know God, but really didn't have anybody to point me there until I met someone in my neighborhood that knew God, their family knew God. And it was through that relationship and through getting to know them and being their friend that I could feel comfortable asking questions and going deeper, and then starting to go to church, and then starting to become a disciple of Christ. And I'm here today because of that relationship. And so Youth for Christ is simply an organization that wants to create programs that engage kids in relationships. And so that's really what the encounter is all about. We have the largest indoor skate park north of the cities. And so we get kids from all over Canada, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wisconsin, and all over Minnesota coming here, because if you skateboard, really this is the only place you can do that indoors north of the cities. And so we get to see a lot of kids, and we're kind of the only ball on the court for that. And we also have a big concert venue and a big gym, and we want to reach kids in the downtown area. And we're always scheming of different ways that we can engage lost kids in relationships, and really looking at this culture and seeing where they're at and saying, what's something we can do to reach this specific people group, this specific type of kid. And so that's really what Youth for Christ is about, and that's what we do.
Very cool. That's actually a perfect lead into my next question. I was going to ask, what kind of kids come through your doors? You mentioned different groups. Like, what kind of kids do you see?
Yeah, a lot of the kids that we reach and do a good job reaching is the skater kid, the biker kid, the scooter kid, those kind of people. We also reach the art community through music. And if you are a student and play music or in a band, you've probably played a show or are going to play a show at the Encounter, because really there's no other all ages venues around in the Duluth area, and it's kind of hard to play a show.
That's true. So unless you want to be like in your mom's basement.
Yeah, I know. I think, where was our first show? Where was our first show, Matt? For Godhead and Manhood. For those of you listening are huge Godhead and Manhood fans and have been following us.
And I know you're out there.
Oh, I know you're out there. Yeah. Do you remember our first show?
The first show, well, I don't know if I joined the band a little after it was formed.
Okay.
But my first show with you guys was at that Dive Coffee House over in Superior.
Yeah. Yeah, because
what was that even called?
Godhead and Manhood's first show wasn't with you. We had a different guitar player.
Yeah.
Robin Savage. If you're out there, Robin. Sorry.
Great heavy metal name, by the way, Savage.
Savage, yeah. We should have
better than Anderson.
We should have been called Robin and the Savages. Yeah.
Next band.
Better than Matt and the Andersons.
Well, this is true. but we did play a lot of times at the Encounter.
We did. I think, yep, the Encounter.
In fact, I remember way back in the day, we're going on a little nostalgia trip, but
that's what we're about.
Before this building was the Encounter.
Yeah.
It was a shrine temple.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of a secretive building. And we played a show, and there was like, the Shriners wear those crazy little hats.
Yeah.
And didn't they have a huge, like 15-foot tall Shriner hat hanging from the stage?
Yes.
It was very weird. And paintings of Egypt and stuff.
Yep. When we bought the Encounter, that was like the first thing we did was paint over those pictures, those creepy Egyptian paintings. And now we were just talking about that, and we were wondering if we painted over a piece of history. But it's a piece of history that we're more than happy to get rid of. So
I'm with you on that.
I don't believe in the Egyptians. It wasn't true. I don't know what. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, man.
For those Egyptians out there, I just want to apologize right now for my statements.
So, do you think, youth culture has changed a lot since you and I were in school back in the day?
I think it has and it hasn't. I think the issues that teens face and the troubles that teens face are real similar, but I think I think what I see is young people are constantly distracted by their phone or kind of in this other world in front of them. And anytime that there's an awkward point in a conversation, or anytime there's an opportunity to not engage strangers, they just look at their phone. And so I just see a culture that's kind of unplugged a little bit. And so I think that's something that's different, and really what the world that they create and the world that they have to deal with, with sexting and harassment and bullying and that kind of stuff online, where when we were younger, you just don't walk down that alley, or you don't, go in that part of the hall in school. It's kind of like you're kind of always, you're on Snapchat, you're on Facebook, you can't escape that stuff, or it's a lot harder, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I never really thought about how much of a bubble kids can create around themselves.
Yeah.
They can just choose when to check into the real world and when to check out, just
Right.
like instantly.
Right. Totally. Yeah.
Do you think there's a big disconnect between the church world and the world where you minister here at the Encounter? Like, do you think people understand where? Do you think people understand where these kids are and how great the need is?
It depends. I think obviously it's easier to just focus in, and it's easier to focus on what's going on in your world, just like all of us. I know, being married and having kids, it's easy to focus in on that stuff and not think of the outside world, or being a part of a church and just worrying about kind of what's going on in those regards. Or and so I think that for the most part, what I've noticed and what my experience is, a lot of the church is very focused in on themselves, and not intentionally, but because there's a lot of stuff that goes on, and so I think the church has to make a greater effort in really looking at how are we being missional to this community and what's going on in this community. And we have a group of people here with finances and with a heart and with a call, and how can we mobilize these people to go where there's need, and really kind of, and even not just as an individual church, but as the church. And I think a movement that is going to be coming is because of, I think, our generation and millennials, is they're going to see, I don't think millennials care about our church, or they care about the church and the movement of God and really what God is doing. And I think that the next movement is going to be churches coming together and really looking at their community and saying, what are the needs? How can we work together? And no longer care about building our church, but building God's church and His kingdom. And I think that's what it's going to take to actually reach this generation. And I also think, I think that's going to be the next movement. And because when I talk to, we have a youth workers network here, and I talk to a lot of the youth pastors from the different churches, and I just meet a lot of people my age and younger in the ministry, and that's what I get is like we just want to reach lost people, and we don't care. I don't care about. I care more about God's kingdom than I care about Youth for Christ. I want to build God's kingdom than Youth for Christ's kingdom. And I meet a lot of people in ministry that are like, I care about my church, but I want to build God's kingdom. And we need to come together, and we can come together and do great things. And really, when you look in, you look John 17, and where Jesus is talking about how the world will know that Christ is real, that God is real, is when the church becomes one. And that we're getting along together, and we're reaching out. And even though we have disagreements, which is like the church, we all disagree and have different things. Like the fact that we can come together and around Christ and reach a lost people and love each other greater than we love anybody else. I think that's the next movement, and I think that the church is going to do that. But I guess that's a long answer to that question. But
No, that's awesome. That's a great perspective because, I mean, so few people are in your shoes where they get to meet. And you get to meet so many people, like, in the ministry community, and that's really cool to have that, to hear your insight. Because
in the community, I've never encountered anybody that has been like, oh, we don't care what you're doing down there. Like they care what we're doing. It's just there's a lot of stuff going on in their world and what they're doing at church, in their church. So
it's almost like everybody going back has had a heart like, oh, we love to help, we love to do more.
Right.
But maybe this younger generation is actually willing to like have a simpler lifestyle. And maybe let go of some things. And not have to have like the big house, the big whatever. And just actually come together to do something great for God.
Right. Totally.
That's amazing.
Right. And I think you see that in a lot of people that I talk to. You know, I think a lot of millennials and a lot of friends that I have, who don't go to church, and they have a lot of issues with church and just the business and what, it's kind of like, it's really like it just feels like a business. It doesn't feel like people who are motivated like to reach lost people and do whatever it takes to do that. They're more worried about, I guess getting people into their doors so that they can, I guess, have more people to build their thing that they're doing. And it kind of, which is all fine and good, I guess, but, I guess I think we just want to be genuine, and we don't want to be going to a church or a part of anything that seems pointless. That seems like it really doesn't, it's really not living out what like Jesus is teaching and preaching, and like, so I don't know, but that wasn't a good explanation, but I feel like hopefully those out there and you kind of know what I'm talking about.
Like it seems like right now we're searching for like a calling bigger than ourselves. And like we feel this calling to do the work of God and to see God's kingdom come and see people affected.
Right.
And it's frustrating to get caught up in the business end and maintaining buildings and budgets and all this stuff. And if we could maybe do something even a little crazy and do ministry differently, we just feel like we could do it better. So maybe that's like some God's stirring up right now to.
I think he is. And so, and really, in regards to the church caring for what we're doing down here, it's really our job people care. I think it's our job to let people know what we're doing and asking them to be involved in some way. And I think most churches would if they knew or if they could. And so,
So this is a good time to throw this out there before I transition to a few other questions. If someone is listening to this and they're like, I would love to give something to Youth for Christ. Where is there a place they can go to do that?
So if you want to volunteer, be a part of giving to us financially or prayer, a great way to connect is on our website, which is www.headofthelakesYFC.com, or you can just Google Encounter Youth Center or Youth for Christ Duluth, Minnesota, and that website should pop up. There's a Donate Now button, and you can go there and donate and sign up to give monthly or a one-time gift, or if you just want to meet up for coffee sometime, I'm down with that, and would love to share with how you could help. We really, like I said, our intention here is to engage in real relationships with young people, and to do that, you need people that actually want to spend time with young people and are willing to give that time. And so if we're also looking for volunteers and people that have a heart for skaters, inner city youth, and kids that love music. So
very cool. So if you're listening and your heart is stirred, stop what you're doing. Don't put it off, because otherwise you won't do it. Go on the website, hit the Donate Now button, and just help them out. Or if you want, like Eric said, if you want to volunteer, just do it ASAP. Contact them. Send that first email and make contact, and you'll be glad you did it. So now I want to shift the conversation to music, because music's always been a big part of our lives. and Christian bands made a big impact on us, or at least for me.
Yeah.
So do you think Christian music is still making a big impact? And I should mention Eric plays in a band called Lessons right now. So
Yeah, we just came out with a new album, I think in September, called The Daydreamer. I probably got that wrong. I get everything wrong. But it's The Daydreamer or Daydreamer, something like that. But you can get that on iTunes. But
they're metal. So if you
they're metal, yeah.
If you like
so
the metal.
the question is Christian music making an impact, right? Like
yeah. What do you think of the
Yeah.
state of Christian music?
I honestly don't think so at all. I think that Christian music today is, if you want to be successful, or if in the Christian realm, I think if you want to be a full-time musician because you have that gift and you have that desire, I mean, if you listen to Christian radio, it's like, it seems like formulated music, and it's generic and it is lame, and I listen to it and I honestly I can't listen to it. I turn off. And you can go through radio state, like as you're going through your radio looking for music, you're like, oh, that's a Christian, like instantly you can tell it's a Christian station. And I used to be like, oh, is it because there's some kind of spirit like behind it, and I think no, because there's a formula to creating Christian music in Nashville, Tennessee that sells.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And so if you're a musician and you're saying, okay, I want to be a musician and I'm a Christian, why would you become a Christian artist? Because here's your choices. It seems like your choices are a tough road ahead of doing it independently and trying to do your own thing, or you kind of try to become this Nashville sound, or to be successful in the Christian music industry. I think back in the day, in our day, back in the 90s and early 2000s, you had record companies like Tooth and Nail that was really supporting independent bands that were like creating music that I know I never heard before. It was just good music, but it was bands that were just themselves, and writing music that they just wrote. And that was kind of an avenue where it gave these bands that nobody would ever hear if it wasn't for Tooth and Nail, like a place to grow and gain fans and find some sort of success. And it made people like me, like want to be a Christian band and start a band and shoot for that. And but nowadays I even think of Tooth and Nail records now, and they're even like, if you listen to their bands, it's all kind of a little bit of the same thing too. And so I don't see them taking risks like they used to, and I'm sure it's a money thing. But yeah, there's nobody really kind of fostering or creating a good place to I guess care for new up and coming independent artists. And I think of like this summer, Lessons played at Sunshine Music Festival, which was great. But the thing that was sad to me was like the fact that the headlining bands were Newsboys, Switchfoot, Michael W. Smith. Like, it was a bunch of bands that have been headlining for years.
Since we were teenagers.
I mean, that would have been the same headlining lineup from when...
like 15 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it really shows you the state of where Christian music is at today. It's just... it's not encouraging and looking for new and upcoming artists. It's not giving bands chances to survive.
Yeah.
And so...
I heard somewhere, I can't remember the source for this, but basically that record labels, because like CD sales took a huge downturn a few years ago.
Yeah.
With digital coming on.
Yeah.
And so all the record labels pulled back, and pretty much the Christian record labels, it was either like super formulaic, safe stuff like the Newsboys, or it was like worship.
Really?
Which is why worship is so big.
Boy, isn't that exactly what you see now?
Yeah.
You don't, and going to Sunshine too, like there was no indie bands. It was basically, you got the HM stage, which is great, and you got a bunch of hard bands, but then you have a bunch of pop bands. But where's like the indie, like do it yourself, like like bands, and there was none of that, and it was just it's kind of depressing. It's not the same place it used to be at.
Yeah. I wonder if more Christian bands are just trying to make it in the secular world, or if it's just people who are Christians just kind of making music and not trying to use that as a vehicle to share Christ at all.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of Christian bands are just trying to make it in the secular world, because why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? Like, why would you try to? I mean, I think here's what I think is important. You need, like, as a Christian and a believer who loves music, Christian music is so important, because the reason we should be listening to Christian music, because we want to be at a place where we're constantly renewing our mind and becoming a new creation. And music has the power to influence you and change the way that you think, and negatively or positively. And I know personally, I love music, and I'm always checking out bands and listening to stuff. And there's certain bands that I'm just like, man, I can't listen to this band because it's just influencing my mind even a little bit, or changing the way that I think that's contrary to the way that God thinks, and so we need more Christian artists and people that are writing genuine songs from their heart that love the Lord, because really there's a market out there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I remember back when we were doing the metal band. Honestly, I think being involved in the secular scene as a strong Christian band was one of the best things for us. Yeah. Because we actually had to make a stand for what we believed in. Yeah. And we really felt like we were being like missionaries almost out there.
Oh, for sure.
And, I don't think there's anything wrong with like gearing your music for the church. Yep. If that's the kind of songs you write, then that's what you want to do. Yeah. But I wish more people would form bands with that mission mindset, like we're going to go play where the other bands in our scene are playing. Yeah. And be a light for Christ. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's hard. It's hard. I mean, I think to do that, you have to go in with the intent, like this is about mission and about doing that. And even though you play in a band and love music and that's what you're really ultimately all about, you also got to realize too that like these people, these that we're reaching, like, are we going to be intentional about reaching them? And I think if you're not, I think if you're playing with a bunch of secular bands, I think that's also going to influence you as well. And
absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's super important.
Yeah. Maybe that's where the role of like staying plugged into like a church comes in. You need that place to go back, to get out of that scene, to get out of the world, to have someone like a pastor, speak into your life and hear the word and get around other believers and stuff.
Yeah. Even like, I think when we were playing, we had fellow bandmates, we were the only hardcore band in the scene here, and it was new metal bands and Nirvana bands. I mean, this was like in the late 90s. But as we started playing, there was other bands that formed. Yep. And having those other bands that were Christian metal bands, like, created like a brotherhood where we can, and so I think accountability is important. And even other bands that you're playing with that are kind of trying to do the same thing, or even encouraging other bands to try to join you in the mission of reaching the scene and the kids that are in the music, because that's a great call, I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Well, man, this was super fun hanging out.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Okay. I'm looking at my notes here. Make sure I get everything wrapped up. So you mentioned that people can go to the Head of the Lakes YFC.
Yep.
.com for to check out stuff about Youth for Christ and the Encounter building, or you can just Google the Encounter in Duluth, Minnesota, and you can find that. And Erick is the man here. And then how about lessons? Where can people hear your new music? You mentioned your new album.
Yeah, it's on Spotify. So if you have Spotify, you can just look up Lessons and Daydreamer. That's the new album. And we have 3 albums. The 3 albums are all 5-song EPs. And so I think they started in 2012. And I think the original lineup was JJ and Chad, and then the 2 guys from Children 18.3, which was David and Seth. And then the second album, it changed the lineup there, and then I kind of joined on 2 years ago, and so
very cool.
Yeah, and so Spotify or also iTunes, Or trying to think what's an old thing that we put our music on, like Pure Volume or something like that.
Oh yeah, Pure Volume.
Is that still a thing?
I think. It's
Check it
probably
out.
still
Try
sitting there.
to see if it's on Pure Volume. I don't know if it is, but you might want to check that out.
There's lots of those kind of sites.
What
out
was
there, so.
yeah?
Bandcamp is one.
Was Bandcamp
Yeah.
a thing? That's cool.
It's not in MySpace though.
That's a good question. I don't think it is. When was the last time you checked your MySpace, Matt?
I don't even know. I think I might have tried to delete it.
Did you?
I tried to.
I
But
still have a MySpace, so check me out on MySpace if you want to. But I think it's geared. It changed like a couple years ago to like just being like sharing music and kind of like it's different. Like you can't
Really?
change your background now like you
weird.
used to and customize it.
Well, rest in peace, MySpace.
Rest in peace. We'll bring it back. We're bringing it back.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap this podcast conversation. Thanks again, Eric.
Thanks,
And,
man. It's an honor.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye-bye. All right, well, that does it for this episode of the show. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, Eric, for coming on the show and sharing your insights and for all the great work you do. You're a rock star, dedicating your life to serving Christ and reaching teens and playing rock and roll music. If you've got any thoughts or comments, please go to the podcast what am I trying to say? The Facebook page, which is the Telescope Podcast on Facebook. And also you can look me up on Twitter, MSA_music, and my website is mysaviorsanthem.com. So reach out if you've got something to say. We'd love to hear from you. And that's what being part of a Christian community is all about, right? Is being able to have your voice heard and to be able to dialogue about some of these things. If you know of a guest that you think would be great on this show, I'd love to hear about them. I'd love to get connected with them. So, as always, thank you so much for listening. God bless. Take care. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
What's up, everybody? Everyone in this place, if you could do a handstand, I want to see your feet up in the air right now.